I'll let the second drop go a little bit, and then I'll start talking about a little of my background, and then start diving into it, I guess. If you guys have any questions while I'm going through this, hit the comments. I'll reply best I can. Alright, so this is my track All Day. It's off my latest Night Bass album. This is probably my favorite track off the EP, so this is the one I wanted to talk about today, I guess, or one of the ones. The other one is kind of a track that I just finished up, and there's kind of a lot of stuff in there that I feel like I could talk about that might be helpful to others. I wouldn't consider myself like super pro. A lot of my techniques are like time-saving techniques, and I like to find the easiest way possible sometimes, but I'll go over that. So a little history on myself. My name is Sasha. I go as Hotfire. Me and my buddy Eric started Hotfire years and years ago. We got our first Night Bass release, I think it was like 2015. Night Bass had just started. Yeah, I guess I was looking back today and I noticed how many that Night Bass actually signed, and it has added up, I guess, 14. You say shit. So yeah, back in the day, we were just kind of making music, me and Eric, and like in his garage, like, we were just like putting stuff out just for fun. Like we would go to like parties around town, and like AC Slater was like one of our inspirations, and he happened to play one of our tunes that we just put up on SoundCloud. And he played it at like Ultra or something like that, and so we were geeking hard. And a few days later, he hit us up, and he was like, "Yo, I'm starting this Night Bass thing," and so he asked us if we wanted to do an EP. And I think that was the only time, like in my music, in the time I've been in the industry, someone's like asked to do an EP without actually hearing any tracks first. He was just like, "Yeah, make one, shoot it to me, we'll make it happen." So that's how we started, and then ever since then, like, the connections with Night Bass and like just learning from those artists and getting to work with them sometimes, and like the whole mentality behind the parties, the Night Bass parties, it's been such a help like through this music venture. So they've helped a lot. So me and Eric were working on tracks for a long time. He unfortunately passed away last year. So it's been kind of hard, like going from the mentality of like you're making music with your friend, and like I still love music, like, but it was just something that we started doing together. So I've been through a slump, and I'll touch on some like getting out of like blocks and getting stuck and stuff like that as much as I can, because I've had to deal with that quite a lot lately. And so this EP that this track is from is kind of like the first bodies of work that I started working on after I kind of like hid away for a couple months. And so I was just trying to have fun with it. And this track in particular, like I went in, started making it with the mentality of I want to play this at a Night Bass show, just because those shows like have an energy behind it where like something will pop off, and like I don't know, it's a good feeling. So that was my mentality when I started making this. I figured I'd just go from the start and kind of like try to retrace my steps on building this track together. So usually I'll start with like the loop here, like I'll stay within the first 8 bars or whatever, and I'll work on some percussion. It depends on the track or what mood I'm in, whether like I start doing drums or whether I start with the kick or start doing hi-hats and stuff first. I think this one I probably started with the hi-hats. Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of producers are going through like the same kind of like depression, and like it fucking sucks, dude. Like, I don't know. I just I started forcing myself to work on music again, and I started remembering why it was fun to me in the first place. So sometimes you do just need to like give yourself that little push, I think, and just play around, you know, like don't go into it thinking you have to make something or you have to finish something today. Um, I think it's important to like remember that this is really fun, or it can be fun if you're just like messing around and like trying new things and stuff. Um, so yeah, I started with these hats, typical, just like hi-hats on the upbeat. I did something I don't normally do because I have some UAD plugins that I'm trying to start using more, just because they add like some cool warmth and sound and stuff. Um, so I had like what was this? I think this is like some garage hat or something. Some sample pack. I use a lot of sample packs. I love sample packs. I love finding new samples and then using those sounds however I can. So I pull from a lot of different places a lot. And yeah, so I had this hat and I actually used, it's called the Culture Vulture. It's a UAD plugin. It's like a distortion plugin, but it just like crushes. It added some insane texture on this hi-hat, and I was like, all right, that's cool. I'll use that because the transient on this hat like kind of knocked a little bit when I added it on. I already bounced it out with it on, so I'm not gonna. But yeah, you might be able to hear. It's kind of like a little crunchy, a little airy. And then typically, like, I'll start adding some snares, like these little snares I started adding. You can see I deactivated a bunch because most of the time, like 85% of the time, I'll add too much in a loop and then start chipping away and like deducing it a little bit. Especially for the intro, I just want my intros. I like to have kind of bare and like easy to mix into, easy to mix out of. So I'll keep a couple elements, especially when I'm just starting out. I'll grab some percussions. So this one I took from like an Oliver loop. The Oliver sample packs, I'll just say this right now, the Oliver sample packs are primo. They're so good. And I think this is like, let me just undo a couple things. So this is just some loop I had. So I just cut these parts because it sounded cool. I don't know, man. And then a lot of times with drums, I'll use this like little technique. Eric taught me this like a long time ago. But if you warp your drums in beats mode, you can stop the sample at the peaks, like the transient peaks. So you can like tighten stuff up really easily within the clip right here. Let me see. So yeah, I just brought it down a little bit without it. It's a little out there, so I just tightened it up a little bit. I don't know. A lot of time I just like play around and I throw stuff in until it fits. I'll move stuff around a lot and see what fits where. And then the kick, I think I made this in Nicky Romero's like Kick 2 plugin, if any of you guys use that. It's a pretty simple like fire plugin for like making tuned kicks really easily, and I don't know. I also added the Kilohertz transient shaper just to give it a little more bite. There's a couple transient shaping like plugins out there, and like I'm all open to finding more. I just been using this one recently, since this track, I guess. And yeah, it just gives a little more bite to the kick. I don't know. It helped out with the cutting through the rest of the track in the end. It's not a super huge difference, but it added it for me. Kick tweak. I've seen kick tweak a while ago. I think it's been a minute, but I know it has similar properties.
On Sunday, they stay all day.
So keeping the drums crisp is usually towards the end of the track. To be honest, I'll go in to my drum group or whatever. I don't sometimes like my workflow is so sporadic. Sometimes I don't group stuff right away, and like I don't know. So I'll group all my drums usually towards the end or like after the fact, and then I'll slap. I'll cut off most of the lows so that they don't muddy up anything, and then I'll add like a drum bus to it, just so I can like adjust the transients if I need to, or add some like more drive to it. And then even in some scenarios, like I'll just straight up throw an EQ on there and see which areas I think should be cutting through a little bit more, and I'll just, I don't know, like I'll just start raising, doing like high shelves and seeing how it fits when I kind of shape it that way. Starting with the drums and bass, drop. So I'll go back and forth. Usually I'll do this loop. It's like 8 16 bars. I'll do like an intro loop just to start out, so I have like a bass, like drums and bass. By bass I mean like starting ground. And then yes, I am EQ. Most of the time I'll EQ before the processing. If something's sticking out to me later in the fact, I'll double check to see that nothing like ugly is coming through at the end of the chain. But yeah, so I'll start like my intro loop or whatever. A lot of times I copy the drums over straight up and just put it like 32 or 41 or like wherever I think, because you can always add time, delete time later. So I'll just slap them in an area for a second, and then I'll do like simple effects, like simple starting points, like maybe it's like some sweeps, just so I have a bass again for like when I started out, I didn't have the vocals, I didn't have the synth I probably had early on. I'll explain that in a second. I did not have this. The drums probably weren't being affected or anything like that. So I'll just have pretty much a blank slate, just like a phew, and then I'll start building like a riser. Like most of the time from the clap right here, like I'll add a clap just so I have like a point to reference to. Boom, boom, and then it drops or whatever. And then I'll plug in like a one hit bass on the one, just to have a starting point. For this track, it's just like a big lumpy growl thing. So I'll add that, and then I'll go back and forth between, because I don't want to get stuck, and like a lot of times I'll get stuck and keep working on something that I don't even end up liking. So I try to make sure that I'm still interested in what I'm working on as I'm working on it. And a lot of times when you're working on the drop, I feel personally that it's helpful to have like a little bit of a buildup, so you can kind of feel how the tension's going to get released once it does drop. It helps you write the drop, in my opinion, so that you don't get stuck where, like, if you have this whole like sick riser just as a reference right before it hits, then it kind of gives you like a direction, like pushes you in a direction to like keep the energy up once it does drop. What else did I disable right now?
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
So yeah, and then usually I don't think I had a direction like in terms of like melody or anything like that at first. So a lot of times I'll play around with pads or like whatever synths I can find. Just because they sound sick like under drums and you can kind of get a feel. And like, I'll say it right now, I'm a big preset surfer. Like, I feel like it's important to know what to do inside of synths. But I love like browsing through random ass presets and just kind of like picking them apart and seeing what I can make out of that, or like how I can use it in a different way. which I do quite a lot of, and it kind of helps, I feel like, in terms of building these like little bass lines, which I'll go over in a second right now too. So yeah, this one was like, I think this one was just straight up stock. Like I just found this. Sometimes I'll use LFO tool to do like a little side chain. Sometimes I'll use a compressor. It really just depends on like the mood I'm in, I guess. Or if I know I'm gonna use that synth where there's not a kick later or whatever, if that makes sense. So this pad, I was like, okay, this is cool. I have a push too, so they have all these scales built in. I'm just like playing around. So I usually I do keep the same drum loop for the drop in terms of not processing it differently, I guess. But I do add like I'll add like another hi-hat layer maybe, or different perks in more places, so I guess that it hits harder. It could make sense to process it so it makes it hit harder. It's just not something I do personally. So I established this melody was like what started the whole track, I guess. This little pad line. And then once I bounce that to this audio, I like to use this like plugin by Denise called Noise 2. But it's just like adds like a texture layer, and you can make it adaptive, so it's kind of like velocity sensitive, I guess. So you can hear like a little layer of white noise, I guess, on top of it. So I just added for taste, just to fill up some more of the spectrum here. The vocal I found randomly. Sometimes I'll search the internet for like 70s vocals or 60s vocals, and I'll just find the most obscure songs I can find, and or acapellas, and see what I can come up with. I really liked this one because of the way she does that like little tremolo thing at the end. I was like, that's fucking sick. I have to get it in there. So yeah, scrubbing through this little acapella or whatever.
Days, I always like to watch the ball games, or stay all day, chillin' at the park with a couple of my homies.
So yeah, I just got to chopping, and like usually I'm a big audio guy. I like to work in this audio view, so you won't see me programming any drums in MIDI from most of the time, except in the next track. There's an instance where like I'll do snares, but I'll show you why. So yeah, I essentially had to pick apart this vocal, see which words I guess I wanted to include in the song.
But it's
I ended up thinking like, okay, this is a cool little pre-drop vocal right here.
But it's okay.
So again, before I even had any of this, I think I put this in here.
But it's okay. But it's okay.
Whoops.
But it's okay.
So yeah, I was like, I need a vocal to go over that pad line to kind of fill up the riser area, this breakdown part. And like, yeah, these words don't even make sense, but they're kind of catchy, and I think that that's what matters most of the time. A lot of dance music has just like some gibberish, and it's like, as long as you can repeat it, I guess it's pretty sick. classic reverse reverb trick. I don't know if you guys don't know this, I'll just explain it real quick. But it's super easy to do little lead up. What's it called? Little lead up reverbs. I like to do it on vocals a lot just so that they don't come out of nowhere. It's like, especially right here, since it's nothing at all right before the drop, or right before the vocal starts coming in. So once you have, like, basically what I did is I'll grab the first like syllable, the first part of the word, drop it into a new track, add a reverb. Valhalla reverbs are super good just because they're super spacious and like a lot of space. I like to use the FabFilter ones just because I'm used to it. I've been using them for a while. And yeah, so I'll cut off, like, I'll get rid of some of the low end in this reverb, crank the space, just make it super spacey and like long. I just, again, like the width and stuff, it's all to taste. I'll leave the mix up. More space, more decay rate. Yeah, and then just freeze it, and then you can just grab the audio and then reverse it into the word or whatever. Makes a cool little riser build up into it. Stands wrong. Methods or plugins for stereo width. Yeah, so first, okay, so Alex, I do, especially this track, most of my tracks I do have the dance floor in mind. Like, I think of how people are going to dance to it more than I think of like how they're going to listen to it at their homes or whatever. Just because that's the type of music this is. I don't know, and it's like fun to me that way. So yeah, this one definitely, especially this one, because I said like I wanted to play this at Night Bass, which I actually got to before the pandemic hit, but that was like the whole driving force behind this track. So I do keep them in mind, especially when doing the drops. Like, I want to make it catchy enough to where they can dance to it without knowing what's coming, I guess. And yeah, so if it's too cluttered or if stuff starts getting too crazy, I'll usually dial back and kind of simplify it with the dance floor in mind. Methods for stereo width. Yeah, I'm like not the best. I'm probably not the best guy to ask that. I did in this track. For my drums, I don't think. Again, so this track was probably about a year ago. I made it before the EP got released a couple weeks ago, and I don't think I really did anything to affect the stereo field for my drums. I did, however, wanted to make this. So it's like a donkey thing, and it's kind of like the main part of the track, or the main part of the drop. And it's just something that we had recorded from, what's it called? It's like a make noise synth. It's like an instrument, like an analog instrument. And so we recorded this line, and I liked these sounds. So I threw this other plugin that I use often that's called Nugent Stereoizer. And it has some cool ways of like adjusting the stereo field without messing it up in mono, I guess. Like, I didn't look too far into their whole thing, but I've tested it. Like, the way, from what I've used, it works pretty well, and you can like push stuff into certain areas without muddying up other areas if you like. So this is a plugin I would definitely check out if you'd like easy ways to mess with your stereo field, I guess. Certain keys I stick to for bass response. Yeah, so probably like D, I guess, like D sharp, like more often than not. I don't know. It's just, it always sounds good usually when you drop it in there, and it's like the name. Yeah, so like D or D sharp, and like I think this one. What was this one? I know the bass. I think the sub part is an E. Yeah. The name of the plugin was Nugent Stereoizer. I'll pull it up again. They have a couple of dope plugins. I just like this one for the stereo field effect. I've used it on like hats sometimes and other tracks. other things that I just want to get like kind of spacey if I don't want to use like the dimension expander or whatever. So yeah, to touch on like preset surfing a little bit again, I like to go through just because like it doesn't bog me down with, especially if I don't have like, I have sounds like from sound design sessions previous that I like refer to, but just to get like a quick direction, I'll go in. So this was, I pulled this up for this project for the sake of this project, but this was like the original preset that I found. I don't know, some donk. And most of the time, like if you just check where the filters are routing to, you could adjust these, sometimes the envelope, swap a couple wavetables, and like you get some cool sounds, and stuff's already routed so that you can just play with the LFO to kind of shape some stuff, which is what I did for this one. Basically, I think I made it like a wob, and like I just softened it out with a what's it called? A little sine wave. Yeah. So yeah, a good starting point. Like I just wanted to have a little donk bass right there. And then something I like to do personally is just get rid of the hi-hat after the first kick. It depends on the track, like it depends on the energy you're going for, but I like to do that little bit of silence before boom, clap, and then it's just on again and like sort of going again. So and then I think I had the sub after that bass. I had a sub because I knew I wanted like a dunk doom. Real simple. Again, this track is pretty simple, to be honest. Like I don't know, some of like the more popular Hotfire tracks are like the simplest ones, and I'm like, it's I guess don't overthink it. If it works, it works. So once I'll have that initial donk, a lot of times I'll just like duplicate it, mess with the serum patch to get like a similar sound to go off of and riff off of. In this case, I didn't do that because like I said, I had this. I wanted to do this, and then this. Like I had this in mind. Except the sub, I didn't know it was going to be like that until I literally just slapped the saturator and like blew it up. And I thought it worked for the, with the drums already underneath and everything. Like, I don't know, I just thought it fit. I was like, okay, I can roll with that. And I might have made this, but I don't use my sub pack anymore. I had a sub pack. I'd recommend them. I think they're dope in terms of like dialing in your sub if you don't get good response in your speakers or whatever. Sub packs are pretty dope. Oh yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, that other sound that's kind of like the driving force of this track is like this weird detuny thing right here. And this was just a product of sampling an old sample that we had, just like a run through on a synth. I thought that sounded cool, so I started throwing them in here. Again, placing them, I place a lot of times when I'm placing sounds, especially for like the offbeat kind of stuff, I'll hold down command and just like throw it in a little place or whatever until there's usually certain areas of the grid that you kind of know will fit. I would say the simplistic tracks tend to do the best. Again, going back to like they're easy to pick up on, especially like on the dance floor. Like if there's not a whole lot going on and it's like really good groove and like, you know, if that's all you have, the really good groove, like I think that's a good driving force for like keeping the track going. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be too crazy, like as long as it's something repetitive that you don't get tired of hearing over and over and over again. And I love the repetitiveness of like dance music and like house music, and I try to lean into that when I'm doing I do like 4-bar loops or whatever, like 2 to 4-bar loops on my melodies or bass lines, because I try to find like good riffs that just sound good over and over again, and that way you can kind of like let the drum fills and and like those little things that you do at the end of every 4 bars or whatever, those things like really stand out a lot more and like keep the track going, especially when you bring in like little elements over time. My reverbs on the sends, yeah, that's a good question. I really wanted to go over that because I do that a lot. Oh shit. Yeah, okay, so reverbs on the sends. This is like a default like template I had set up. I think Eric set this up a long time ago and I've just been using it since. But I usually have like a tight, like a room reverb, and then like a bigger like hall reverb. And then I'll make I'll explain it more in the next track because I didn't do it quite the same way in this track, but I'll make another reverb that's kind of just like upper, mid, and highs, and like really tight. And then I throw those on my dry bass channels, and you get that like UK garage Lorenzo-y kind of like warehousey bass that just like sounds like it's in a room. And again, I have a better example of that in the next track. So I'll go a little bit more in depth into that. Jason, thank you for that question. Yeah, the call and response technique definitely is like a big part. Like usually it's without even thinking about it. I just want to get like a boom, 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 boom to follow it up like before the loop goes again. So I think I worked on this like in this order. I had this boom, boom. I knew I wanted it to come right before the clap. And then a lot of times, yeah, like a lot of times when I'm producing, I'll get this first bar or like first half a bar like solid. I'll be like, okay, I have some dope sounds in here. How do I finish this phrase without like messing up this good thing I had going? And that's really the hardest part. And some tracks, I like to just like keep it more open for the second half, so the response is a little bit more simple again. Like in this case, I kind of just let the sub play out a little bit for the response before it kind of like brings this back and then rolls again into the loop once again. And then the other, like, this is like my favorite part of the track just because, again, I was preset surfing on Serum in packs that I had no business being in. It was like a rhythm pack or something. But again, they have cool sounds, and like this isn't even being used. I think the full. So this is the. It's all big and like squelchy, but the original preset is like. Which I would never use in a track. I don't know. It's just not. That's not my thing. A little too aggressive. So I was just playing around again, like my push 2, I have a controller, so it's easy to just like mess around with the pads and kind of like play out riffs as you go. Yeah, so if you don't have like a MIDI controller or something like that, I'd probably recommend it. It helps. So yeah, I threw these in here. I was just stabbing around and I was like, that's kind of cool. I could make that work. A lot of times once I get like a pattern or something, I'll move it around a lot and see where it works the best within the loop. In this case, it happened to be here. Once I got that sorted, I was like, okay, the bass should come in and out with that little stab. It sounds really cool when you have fast stabs that have bass underneath them. I've been finding. So I wanted it to go with that. Gives it some low end, backs it up. Most of the time, the basses that I do will be like mid-range. Like I'll leave the low end out so I can let the sub do the work for it. And then for this bass, I used some random like what's it called? Some random Ableton rack that I found online called LFO Shaper. It kind of mimics LFO Tool in the sense that like you can shape the way the LFO is going to hit this sound. So I just use this to do a quick wiggle wobble. And then I do that throughout the track to match all the other wobbles that go on. So this one does it again because there's like a little riser here. Should producers tracks have when they send the demos? That's a good question, Alex. The number one issue that producers tracks have when they send me demos. I get some good demos sometimes, and there's not a lot like I have to say bad about it. I think some people don't spend enough time on the mix. I think the mix is super important. If you're dialing in your volumes on all your channels like really well, it does a lot of the work for you in terms of like making everything fit. Like, I don't know. So a lot of times, for some reason I go in even increments too. But like I'll drop my volume by like -6 or like -9 or something like that. I'll get everything quiet so I can hear if anything's sticking out, if anything's louder than it should be. And yeah, I feel like while I'm producing, I spend a lot of time adjusting volumes. So yeah, I think the mix is like one of the biggest issues that demos that I've seen have. Another thing is like creativity, I guess. Because yeah, like I said, I preset surf. I have no shame in that. But if you're using like a super popular sound and that's kind of your lead, there's no originality, I guess. And I think that's a big part of why like AC hit us up in the first place, because the tracks that we were doing before were just kind of weird and like out there a little bit. And I think a lot of artists appreciate originality. It goes a long way when you're producing tracks. Just the leveling over R. Yeah, I guess like from what I don't get like a ton of demos, so there's not like an average I have to go off of. But from what I have heard, like people just starting out, yeah, a lot of it's the leveling. Like their kick will be super loud and kind of overbearing the rest of the mix. Things like I guess like transitioning between sections. Like every 8 bars I try to add something or remove something or like keep the energy going, but it's kind of easy to do too much change or too little change in between. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but yeah, I think the biggest issue would just be like the mix not sitting well, or like not loud enough. Their bass might not be coming through quite as much as it should. What else do I do in the mix if not much stereo manipulation and panning? I don't know. I mean, like some gain staging usually. Okay, lately I changed my master chain so much throughout the last like couple years because I'm like chasing this dragon, but then it all just comes down to I'll have nothing on the master chain for like 90% of the track that I'm producing, and I just wanted to get it to sound as good as possible, bare as possible. And then I'll go back and then I'll add EQs, like drum bus on some things. I'll saturate some things to get to kind of like even out the frequencies or whatever. Let's see. And yeah, at the end of the mix, like if I want it to get loud again, I'll just throw a limiter on it. And then PD Clicks, one time he gave me this collab and he had an OTT on his master chain, so I started doing that. If you just like drop the mix, it's like an easy, quick master. I don't know, I thought it was kind of weird, but it is pretty sick. Does add a little warmth towards the end. Again, through the track, just trying to keep the energy up. I do like open hi-hats after like 8 bars or something like that. A lot of times I'll take rides, like super open rides, and just sidechain them. So you get like that ducked hat underneath everything else. Specific settings, not really, dude. Okay, so like yeah, drums, they've always been a huge problem too, especially like starting out producing, getting them to come through. Um, and like, yeah, so I'll add the drum bus, I'll loop it, and then kind of adjust like, I like the transient section right here. You can like tune it to the track, whatever. You can add some drum, like some drive, I mean. And I kind of just do that. I'll do some EQ. Not this track, I didn't do it. But yeah, like if I need to, I'll throw an EQ. I'll see where it's missing. And then I think like side chains on some of the other elements in the track kind of helps bring everything through. Especially the kick. Like I always want the kick to come through. So I'll do subtle side chains on like a bunch of different stuff. Sometimes even like the whole bass group. Or like I'll do an EQ cut off side chain or whatever. Just to get it more pumpy and like have everything else cut through more. And again, like on these type of tracks, I keep my drums fairly simple, depending on the track, I guess. This one is like super simple. It's basically just hat, snare, clap. So I left these spaces are kind of left open for the drums. The basses I feel like come in between them. So it wasn't too hard to get them to cut through, I guess. Yeah, just use good samples for drums, I guess, is like a big thing. Like I said, like I'm a big sample dude. I only pick out the samples that I think sound good. If I need to, I'll change them. If you guys are using Ableton, you didn't know this, you can just swap out a whole sample by managing the sample file and then just replacing it right here. So like if you didn't like this kick at the end of your track and you're like, I want a whole different kick, but you don't want to replace every audio or whatever, you can straight up just manage the sample file and then drag your new sample there and it'll replace all the ones in the project. Do I make a bunch of songs and then choose the best to release or spend time on quality track? Yeah, that's a good question too. I try not to make songs thinking about the release ahead of time because sometimes it like, I don't know, I feel like it, what's it called? It'll kill like the fun. I don't know. I like to have fun when I'm making the track, so I don't want to be like bogged down to, oh, it has to sound this way or else this label's not going to pick it. I try not to get caught up in that because I have before and it kind of sucks. It kind of ruins the fun of everything. Morgan, if you want to like chime in, what do you do specifically? Because I'm curious to see if there is something that you do that you think maybe I even should. But yeah, so I don't really plan the releases. Like I kind of just make tracks, and then usually the best ones, like my favorite ones, I'll end up finishing all the way through. And yeah. Do you think it's better to master producing and find your sound and release? Master producing, find your sound. Yeah, definitely. Like I mean, I don't think I did that because when I started, I know I had crappy songs. I know a lot of people do. But I think it's good like to keep going because what's it called? I think it's good to like keep releasing tracks and keep going because you learn from it. Like you don't learn as much from a half-finished project as you would from following it all the way through, even if you don't like it, because like you'll try to make it sound as best as you can, and I think you learn some good tips from yourself along the way. Switch time tune your drums. I do tune my drums. Yeah, I like the kick. I'll tune. I'll do some minor tuning on everything else, just to make sure it fits. A lot of times I just go by ear, for the drums at least. I like good little shuffly samples. And the question was if you wanted to chime in and say there was something like, if there's like a technique that you do or something, specifically for like stereo on your drums or making your drums cut through. But yeah, I try not to do too much. In this track, I'll add some things like, where is it? This is like a dumb little filter. It's just like a lo-fi effect kind of thing that I did for the drop down. But yeah, I just turn those on and off for this break area specifically. But yeah, other than that, it's really just drum bus does a lot of work, man. Drum bus is tight sometimes. You can slap that on anything. I like trying just different things. Like, I don't know, you can go extreme one way and figure out what works and what doesn't. I think it's a good time to switch to the other project because I think we're like halfway through. I think I've explained everything. The vocal, my chain on the vocal was just like a low cut. I use UAD. What's it called? LA2A Legacy amp or whatever. I like using this on my vocals because it like really cuts them through and like squashes them. Really makes them fit in the track. And then I like to use Nectar just because, again, I'm a big preset surfer and they have a lot of good presets for like saturation and like delay and stuff like that. A lot of useful tools in there. And then sometimes I'll throw like a delay that I can control. A tip for like delays and reverbs, if you're going to do it on vocals, I think is like, what's it called? Adjusting the wet dry so that, especially if there's spaces in between the words, you can duck the wet dry so that it doesn't muddy up the beginning of the sentence with the tail of the last loop or whatever, if that makes sense. So little things like this can kind of make a big difference. Because it goes, yeah. How do you like to mix your kick and sub bass? I saw you had a cut off your side chain. Is there any other cool tips? Yeah, man. I have that problem too sometimes where I'm like, this kick does not work with the sub, and a lot of times I think it's kind of just like luck of the draw. Again, I think like did I do it here? Yeah, I did like a EQ sidechain or whatever, so it doesn't kill the sub, but the kick like cuts through a little bit. I think like I know hip hop producers say don't do that, and like I try not to do it, like sidechaining the sub or whatever. But I mean, it worked in this situation. Yeah, usually like you saw, I'll try to find problem areas between the kick and the sub and like dip them accordingly. That usually seems to help a lot. And yeah, the other tip on the kick is just like a transient shaper. Like, again, this is something you could use drum bus for. Oops, wrong window. This is something you can use drum bus for. I just happen to use this kilohertz one. There's a dope one called like SPL, I think, that UAD does. Yeah, I am sidechaining this sub, Francisco, but I do stress about the clicks, and I think I cleaned them up. Usually what we do, me and Eric have done this forever. Right after this, I'll switch to the new project so we don't waste time. But usually what I'll do is I'll bounce the sub to audio, and then I'll physically fade every clip so that it doesn't so that the click doesn't come through. And there's probably easier ways to do it. That's just how I like to do it. I don't know. It's just how I've always done it. But yeah, I'll literally go through here and like just fucking just do this. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but I don't know. I'll get into it one day and I'll just do it. And sometimes it's so worth it. Sometimes the result is insane. You're just like, oh, it's so satisfying. Or what you can do a lot of times is just switching to RMS on the sidechain. I can't even undo it anymore. There you go.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Yeah, a lot of times just switching to the RMS mode on the sidechain will get rid of the clicks. A little bit. Not too much in this instance, but yeah. Have you ever had issues with hearing tonight? Just block your music break. How are you? Yes, dude, that's a good question, Cameron. And I'll talk. Wait, hold up. Take breaks. It's good to take breaks, and I like to reference between my headphones and my monitors so my ears don't get too like too focused on one medium. I'm gonna open up this other project real quick. But yeah, just not too long ago, like a couple of weeks ago, one of my ears was clogged and I couldn't hear anything out of it, and it was throwing me off. And there was nothing I could do about it. It was super, it was super annoying. Yeah, I know how you feel on that. I know people have ways of like dealing with tinnitus. I get it every now and then, but it's not too crazy to the point where it affects my producing. But I know there is ways. There's things that people do. I forget what it is, but there's a way to like cure it for a bit. Volume automation for a photo sidechain. Yeah, that's a way to do it too, dude. Like I wouldn't knock that either. My only gripe about volume automation is that a lot of times at end of tracks, like when I'm done producing, and I'm still like, so the track's done, I'm still tuning into the mix. I don't like volume automation because I like to go and select everything and then lower the volume so I have some more headspace to work with before I do my little self-master thing or whatever. And a lot of times volume automation can like mess that up because it resets the automation when you mess with the volumes, I think. In which case, I guess you could just do like a, what's it called? Use the utility and just use the gain or like a limiter or something like that. Yeah, automated utility, exactly. Tips for feeling creatively blocked. Yeah, I mean, one is just like trying things you wouldn't normally try, I guess. Try a new technique. Check out some YouTube tutorials. I like to check them out a lot. You can learn some cool little techniques through those. I like putting random, again, like I mentioned earlier, if I have a drum beat going, it's so much easier to not be blocked when you have a dope like loop going. So like, I don't know, I think that small thing, like that small bass can just make a huge difference in terms of branching out on where you want to go creatively. Don't be afraid to like undo things that you've did. I've scrapped ideas that I've worked on for so long just because it was a waste of time at the end, you know, and it's kind of like bringing you down. So don't be afraid to like jump on a new project or jump on a new sound if you're kind of feeling stuck in one section of the track or one instrument or something like that. So I'm gonna play. This is another track that just finished up recently. I'll play it through, and I'll start talking about it.
Take it back like 8 tracks.
Right. Yeah, that's a good tip, Dylan. About LFO. I like using LFO tool. It's just, yeah, funny workarounds like that are, I mean, if they work, you know? Alright. So yeah, this is like a new tune I've been working on. I hope it sounds as dope as I like it. I don't know. To make stuff loud again, Anthony. So towards the end of my track when I'm done, again, like I said, I usually try to keep it, I'll keep an eye on the meter. If it clips a little bit, it's fine right here on Ableton with nothing on the master. I usually go in at the end. I'll highlight all my channels, drop them like 6 dB maybe, so I have some space to work with. Slap a limiter on the master, and then pump it up 6 decibels. Sometimes I use my little secret weapon right here, the Neve 88 RS is one of the UAD plugins. Eric suckered me into getting the UAD stuff, so I don't know, I tend to use them sometimes. But this is like a cool little like EQ thing, or little rack or chain or whatever, that I usually put before everything. It kind of like brings out the highs and stuff. But essentially it kind of does like the OTT on the master chain kind of does like a similar thing, in where it brings out the noise on the highs a little bit more. So yeah, OTT, drop it like 10-15% or something, bump the output a little bit. Secret sauce. Smooth. Yeah, cool. So the snare rolls I do manually too. I'll go into this. I get one good sounding snare, and then if you don't have, I mean, typically like I'll have, I think I even started this loop. I started the snare right here, so I had the tops from the rest of the track to go under. Where is it? I mean, I ended up scrapping it from this section, but you can use it as like a reference point to add your snares. And again, I like holding down command and dragging those little triplet spots, like those little nice spots in between. You can loop that, add another one in there like I did for the phrase. So yeah, I mean, it's literally all just manual, and then every so often and yeah, I do that. Like, I know what you mean by like the loops, and they sound kind of clunky sometimes. So I think it's better, like, yeah, if you start tuning them in, especially if you have some noise underneath to like reference, you can just draw them in yourself. And then one thing I did want to go over for sure was like, sometimes there's been a couple tracks where we've done this.
Back like 8 tracks.
All right, so I had a sampler. I had this vocal right here that I knew was going to be the drop vocal or whatever.
Take it back like 8 tracks.
I was like, all right, that's cool. That's a cool vocal. But I wanted to span it across the whole drop or whatever. So I threw the take word.
Take it back like 8 tracks.
Into a new sampler channel, through an arpeggiator on that, and then you can use that to control how fast the sample's being played. So I took it off the sync, and then automated like a, what's it called? Automated the rate on the arpeggiator so that it speeds up, I guess, before the vocal comes in. And then yeah, again, the little reverb thing before that as well.
Take it back like 8 tracks.
Frozen bass, sick ass bassline frozen sample. Yeah, which one? Where is that at? Wait, this one right here? Yeah, this was the start of this track. This was like, I had this loop going. I had the drum loop going. And then I was just playing on the push, and like literally that little melody came up, and I was like, oh, this is sick. So I'll open that. Yeah. So the vocal rise in context. Yeah. So it's just like a bit of this vocal.
Take it back.
That I dropped into a sampler. And then just like repeated the notes so that it keeps going. And then I used an arpeggiator to control how fast it's being triggered. And then I can increase the rate so it gives like a riser effect on how fast it's being. And then usually I'll just tune it so that it glides smoothly into the vocal that it's coming into.
Take it back like 8 tracks.
So yeah, I just like adjusted the rate right here so that it flies into it without stuttering too many or offbeat or something like that. And then you can do cool stuff with like filters and just like processing like that to kind of give it more of a riser feel. I did the same thing with like, I don't know, I thought I did one with like a serum. But I'll go back to this bass line, which again, I think this was just a preset from like, I forget who this was. Morgan Page. Yeah, classic. So sick. It sounded so good. I just had to have it like in this track. So and then this kind of like set the stage for this track for me. Also, yeah, fills. Don't underestimate the importance of fills in between. Like, it just makes that much of a difference. Even just a littlest snare or something different. Yeah. I think someone asked earlier what my favorite synths are, and this is probably one of them. Is like Triton. It's like it's like an old Korg classic one. Yeah, pretty modeled after pretty old school synth, but I like it. I used it in this track for these strings. And then I bounced the strings on this channel to get like a higher frequency one. And then just
Take it back.
in the clip, just use the like transposition, what's it called? Automation right here. And I'll do that on some of the rising stuff just to like give it that effect of, you can do the same thing if it's a synth, you can do the pitch thing or whatever. Those basses, those like whiny basses, I just made an operator real quick. Again, I'm kind of a lazy producer, I'll admit that. So I just like fast, like throwing things up. An operator is super sick for like cool little FM bass things. In this case, I wanted a quick way to route a filter, so I just used the Max for Live envelope, which is a cool way to get like a quick wob or wub. So the envelope is mapped to the filter, and then you can just adjust the time and attack right here, how your wub goes. But yeah, operator's sick because like even once you do all the processing, you can go back here and mess with like the oscillator and get some cool harmonies or whatever. So yeah, I just kind of drew these in because I knew I wanted like the response part to this. Yeah, and that's a big part of why I like to do things like fast, is just because if I take too long, like if I was to design this in like Serum in a different way, I mean, it wouldn't have been that hard. It's a really simple wob, but other sounds maybe, yeah, like if you spend too long, it's really easy to lose the momentum that you have and just like start going downhill. What was I gonna say? There's another thing. Oh yeah, so there's other things that I like to use, like I'll throw them out there in case you guys don't know about them yet. But a cool thing for fast processing or just like making things easier on yourself is this old bass clef plugin. I know I used it on something in here. Let me find it. I don't know if you guys know who Bass Clef is, but he's like OG to the game, super sick, like electro house producer from back in the day. And he has this plugin called Easy Washout, and it's essentially just the Ableton rack. Got all my racks over here. The Bass Clef Easy Washout is just like a rack that adds like delays and reverbs with one knob. So like on risers and stuff, even if I don't end up using it at the end, it's good to get a track of like, or to get a sense of like how you can build it up. Yeah, it's pretty insane. Bass Clef Washout, Bass Clef Easy Washout is like my secret weapon. I use it on everything. It's a good delay. Like, I mean, I use Timeless. I use FabFilter Timeless a lot for like straight up delay. But if there's something I want to just like spaz out, I'll use this or like Valhalla. Yeah, so typically making a whole track, this one came pretty fast just because the idea was coming. Like, and that's the thing too, like keeping motivated while you're working on a track, like it has to be really good for you to listen to the same loop for hours and hours and hours and hours and still have interest in it. So yeah, I like to try to finish tracks as fast as possible while it's fresh and while I'm not tired of it yet. And I think it's kind of luck of the draw sometimes where like you'll get on a roll. The only times I'll come back to projects is if I specifically stop working on it when I know I'm getting stuck so that I don't mess it up. And there's been a couple of tracks like that, and I ended up going back to them later, making minor adjustments and just keeping it how it was, and it ended up working out for the better. So yeah, I try not to like keep tracks shelved because I have like probably hundreds just on my hard drive from back in the day that are decent. Like they're built out. They're probably like maybe as much going on as in this track, but I just never got around to going back and finishing it. Maybe I just lost touch with the melody or whatever. I didn't like it anymore. The background growly sounds in the intro at the break. Are you talking about where are they? Those things? I think I made these in Serum. I tried to go back to the old projects, but I don't think I saved it before I bounced them. But these were just like stabs. Preferred brand of water. These are just like stabs that I had, and like a lot of times I like to work with audio, so I probably just moved them around a little bit, and then for the sake of staying to one idea, I like to consolidate stuff so that I can't go back and change too much. Favorite brand of water, man, I don't know. I got a pure thing for my tap, so I don't have to buy bottled water anymore. This is like some of my last bottled water. Trying to be good to the environment. Fucking, what's it called? Another easy way to make webs. I like to make really gnarly basses with operator, and I like to do this a lot too. And I actually learned this. I don't know if you guys might have seen. There's this dude on YouTube called You Suck at Producing, and he just has like little tips and tricks videos. So again, I don't think there's anything wrong with learning from YouTube and stuff like that. But let's see. So yeah, say you have like an operator bass. I like doing this a lot. Real simple FM bass or whatever. Yeah, for real. Consolidate your tracks or you're scared. Eric actually taught me that back in the day too. He's like, just fucking commit, dude. Just go. And it's like, it makes sense because then you don't get cold feet, and you like, especially when you're committing by bouncing to audio, and then you have this beautiful audio to work with that you can just mangle and like reverse and stretch and do all this cool stuff. But yeah, back to this like dope little. So if you have like a dope little FM bass, literally just added another oscillator or whatever, little harmonics or whatever, and then you can use Serum FX because they have a dope filter. And again, some of you might know about this because I know that tutorial is on the internet. But I like it because for the wubs that I like to do, it's super easy. So yeah, if you throw a filter, CRM effects filter over this operator, I'll assign the LFO to the cutoff so I can make some cool webs. But I needed it to trigger the CRM effects through the MIDI. So I literally have to route an empty MIDI track. You change the MIDI out to, or the MIDI in from the operator. So now it goes through this empty channel and routes to the filter inside of CRM effects. And then super simple, easy webs that you can just use all of CRM effects, like the hyperdimension, stuff like that, to get like really big basses. I'll add some distortion because why not? A little too stereo, but whatever. And then once you have all that set up, if you go back to your operator and like adjust I don't know, it's just a cool way to get some really sick FM sounding basses. And then this brings me to someone asked earlier about my sends and reverbs on stuff. So I'm going to use this bass as an example. If you guys don't know this also, there's a mode in audio channels that you can change to resampling that just turns it into like a record channel for anything that's playing. So I'll solo this little bass I have and get some audio real quick. Oh wait, no, I messed up. There we go. Yeah, I've had to watch the Underbelly video a couple times before I remembered it too. But there's an easier way too. All right. So I probably would separate the sub for this one just because to avoid any issues. I'll typically I'll get my mid basses out and then I'll cut them and then just fit any sub that I have going on. Sometimes I won't make it stereo or I won't use the dimension expander or whatever, and I'll just keep the bump. Have a sub under it. For the sake of this example that I wanted to talk about, it was like alright, so I have this bass. I'll make a new send that's gonna have a reverb, and again I like Pro R. I've used I don't have a copy of it, but I've used Altiverb, and that's like the sickest reverb. It's so expensive though, but it's so sick. Especially for this, it sounds really good when you use this technique on it. So yeah, slap a reverb on my send. I'll cut the low or whatever. I don't want it to be too spacey. I'll cut the decay rate a little bit. I'll leave the mix up, maybe cut the stereo width a little bit. And then now if I slap it on this bass, you have a little bit more control of the reverb, and it doesn't like eat up so much of the bass sound. So you can get some really gnarly like Lorenzo-y, garagey type basses using the sends and reverbs like that, I guess. But yeah, again, dial it into your preference, and then it's cool that you have it on a send, so now you can just like toss it on any other basses that you want to do. The easier way, which is what I did earlier for this, like the underbelly technique or whatever for the webs. Let me get rid of these real quick. Is basically what I did with this operator, and in terms of like assigning, I just assigned the envelope from Max for Live to the LFO or for the auto filter. Yeah. Personally, I think I do prefer sends. Depending on what I'm doing it for, I guess, like I'll use a reverb on the actual channel. I think I might have.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
There's just so much stuff on here. On the actual channel, like I'll turn the EQ on or turn the reverb on and off if I'm like, a lot of times for the breakdowns. So in terms of composition, after say I have a drop already laid out. Okay, that's cool. So a lot of times I'll go to whatever elements I have in the drop. In this case, it was this like wimpy down thing. So yeah, I'll put this in here. And then if I wanted to, what's it called? A lot of times for like the breakdown rise up part, I'll filter it. I mean, I'm using this for something else, but just for the sake of explaining, I'll put a filter. I'll cut the low. Why am I tripping right now? Auto filter. So, boom. And again, this is for like the build up riser part, because I want the element that I want like the main elements from the drop to kind of like be teased, so that they don't just kind of come out of nowhere. So a lot of times I'll do this like little filter thing, and then that's when I add a reverb on top of the channel itself. Something like that, I don't know. Just to give it like that spacey feel during the build-up. You can't really hear it, I guess, in this example, but that same technique could work for any of these basses, I guess, like maybe even this one. Take the filter, the reverb, and then I'll just automate the filter down, the reverb down, so that the sound builds up again. Stuff like that. Yeah, definitely more individual effects purposes. But again, it depends. Like, I don't consider myself the type of producer to like always use one technique all the time. I might do something another way for no reason, just for another track other than to like try it out. I don't know. But yeah, these are just the ways that I typically work from start to finish, just so I don't lose interest and stuff like that. Another thing I use a lot, especially for the build-ups, is like the frequency shifter. Just a really easy way to do like weird pitch effects. Again, can be used on anything. It like really fills out the space if you need some upward effects. That is a great question. Struggling to sound unique, because I ask myself that all the time. I don't know how to stand out. Like, I want to make something that sounds good, but is not like overdone or whatever. And I think like now, I think the good way to do that is just to use weird sounds, man. Like, I think that's why I like the other track so much, is because I had that weird detuned donk thing to kind of use in it. I know like a lot of bass house artists kind of do the same thing in terms of like their their squelches at the end of basses. I think unique sounds like that really go a long way. Also, arrangements and vocals, like, I don't know, I try to keep it interesting and keep it fun. I like taking elements from artists that I look up to, but not recreating them to a T. Um, and just trying new things. Like, I think I had it in here. I wanted to show, this is another example of just like preset surfing, staying unique. This was like the original. I know this wasn't. I don't think this was it. I don't know why these have been doing this. Yeah, so I grabbed this one. There's like a bass, like a Jaws serum pack or something. Why does it sound like that? But yeah, it sounded kind of weird, and then I couldn't tell you what I did, but I got it to sound more of like a clap. And yeah, I happen to think that sounded pretty cool on the kick, so I kept it. And it's like it's not something I've necessarily, I guess I've kind of heard it done before in a sense, but I just thought it was kind of unique and like it wasn't a typical bass or whatever. So I think just thinking outside the box, forcing yourself to think outside the box, goes a long way in terms of staying unique and like sounding unique. I try to stay away from like what's it called, like popular sample packs as well. I know a lot of people use like the same vocals sometimes, and it's, I don't know, if I do use sample packs, it's mostly one shots. If I'm going to take a loop, I'll use the loop and like rearrange it. Yeah, I know I transposed it down. Again, I tried to look back at through the project, but I couldn't find it. Another little Ableton thing, if you guys use Ableton, I didn't know this for the longest time, but you can just like search through your projects within the browser and grab channels if you wanted to. And I'm the type of person to save in iterations, so I'll do like 1.1, 1.2. And then if there's like something that I bounced that I really need to get back to, I can just go back to this browser and find it in the ALS. Stereo imaging tips. Again, man, like I'm not the best when it comes to stereo. Like I'll check every now and then, like I'll use like Insight or something to check my stereo image at the end. Or I'll use, a lot of times I'll just switch to mono on my interface to make sure that nothing sounds dumb. But yeah, again, like Alex mentioned earlier, for my basses, like if I'm going to be using like super wide sounds, I'll typically cut, I'll use an EQ and I'll cut like around 100 or something like that, and then let the sub do the work under it. Basically what I did in this track for most of these sounds. And this is just like a normal sub, just like nothing really crazy about it. And then while I'm plugging in like stabs like this, a lot of times I'll get something in MIDI. Okay, it's dope. I'll duplicate it, and then figure out my next spot or like how I want the groove to keep going. And then yeah, cut those, fit it with, in this case, like I cut the sub so that it matched these. Groove swing. I mean, like, you mean like within like the MIDI? On my push, I like to use the swing sometimes. Most of the time, I just drag. Like, I'll do it manually, I guess. If I'm understanding the correction right, or the question right, like, I'll do kind of my own swing, like how I do with the snares or whatever, instead of programming them in. I don't use the groove pool, or like I don't really mess with it at all. Again, more frequency shifting. I think this was like just an effect that I made real quick in Serum. So yeah, sometimes I like lasers. I'll use laser samples instead of like making them. In this case, I just kind of made my own and then frequency shifted it and did some like delay stuff or whatever. Or maybe I didn't do delay stuff. Thought I did.
Take it back like 8 tracks.
And yeah, you'll probably hear that in a lot of my tracks where I have the space with a vocal or like nothing before the drop. I don't know. I just like to do that. I think it makes the drop hit harder when you have that empty space before it. Gives you a little room to breathe before it comes. Let's see. When I make the drop too, so in this case, a lot of times I'll do the drop and then revert some of the drop noises or like some of the synths in the drop back to the back to the intro. In this case, I did this bass line first, so I kind of structured the drop around that in a sense, in which I chopped little bits of it like this to add and kind of like make part of the drop groove. Yeah, the hit is out there. And again, I think that's kind of cool, like in terms of helping you to be like unique or like just mess around with different sounds. It gives you different ideas. Like you can see this track was called BOC because originally before I had written anything, I think I might have just had this drum loop. I wanted to I wanted to shoot it towards Box of Cats, which is super dope label. I'm a big fan. Obviously, I don't think it's quite that style where it's at now, which goes back to, I forget who asked it, but someone mentioned something about thinking about like the label that you're working towards or whatever when you do the track. So it doesn't always work out that way, and I don't think you should like limit yourself if it's not. I got that clop thing down and I was like, okay, this is going a completely different direction, and I didn't want to give it up. So that's when I started doing like the little night bass basses or whatever over here. You got the late LFO screeches. They always sound good on under a kick because it's like a push pull kind of thing. And then, so structure-wise, I'll usually do this like whole thing. It's like 16 bars or whatever. And then I like to keep it going. This is like I'll keep it going for like another 8 bars. Spin it like, and I try to reduce the elements as I go before I hit the next breakdown. And I do this because I'm trying to keep in mind like people who are mixing my track, I guess. And I know personally if I'm spinning and I'm not going to play the second drop, I'll probably start mixing in another track around here. I'll start it here, maybe start bringing it in around here. And if there's too many elements going on right here, I know it's not going to sound good mixing because it's going to clash with like some of the other stuff. So I try to break it down a little bit before I do the dropout again. And I think like a lot of the effort just comes from like delays and effects and stuff to fill up the space. This, I had like a drum break that I used some like one knob plugin that I have. I like to collect Ableton racks. I think they come in handy which is why I use the washout a lot. There's a couple other ones I'd recommend, like even the easy chords is like a cheesy way to just like get fast chords. And so yeah, so like second breakdown, I just added this little drum break, chopped it up a little bit. Fatty one knob crush, easy peasy. There was like some harsh, like from the snare I think was coming out right here, so hit that a little bit. And then even when you're breaking down, I've been trying to get better about this too. Ableton racks, baby. And no, I'm not. I would say I'm entering my grooves manually via audio on the channels. I use my push mostly for like synths and stuff like that. But yeah, typically like these whole drum loop, like when I start making the track and I start putting like the clap and stuff, I'll do everything in audio, and then like I think these you can see are some shuffles that I put. Little reverse, little snare. Or this is a hat to do a little shuffle on the hat. So yeah, all those like little fills and like shuffle stuffs are mostly audio, just like I throw them in there. And then yeah, throughout the track, that's when I do like the mixing and I'll adjust the volumes and stuff like that. The bass. Yeah, so the bass riffs and grooves, yeah, a lot of times I'll dial in with the push. I'll play this particular one, like this initial bass line I just dialed out, like just messing around on the push. Forget what it was, but initially on the push, I'll dial it out. I'll use the little what's it called, a recall feature, like capture MIDI, because I'm bad about like going back and recording. I'm like, oh sick, like I'll just capture the MIDI and it's right there. And then once I have that groove and I have like the scale I'm going to be working in, I kind of just copy and paste. Like I'll just pull MIDIs from here, plug them in different places, plug them in different bass sounds that I've been going through. And like, yeah, I'll just plug those MIDIs into different instruments that I have, move them around until I get a groove that I can somewhat like conjure in my head, and I'm like, okay, that's a good loop. I'm gonna lean into that and keep working towards that sound. Once I get all those basses in the right spot. One sound, you'd say Notes as a producer and listener. One sound. I'm not particularly fond of like the train horn sound. And like there was a period where it was in a lot of tech house, it just like brrr. And I think right now is really big in drum and bass. There's like a huge surgence of like the horn sound or like the fucking train horn. But I'm not too particularly fond of that one. The hard trap. Yeah, man. What else? So yeah, a lot of these freezes were just like, they used to be MIDIs, and I got like a little clip, and I figured out where I wanted to put them. Keeping in mind, I like these kind of whips. I like because they kind of lead into the clap a little bit. And then once you have like the audio, you could always like put them in different places. They could also lead into the next bar or whatever. Stuff like that. Yeah, so that's why I like working in audio. A lot of these I kept in MIDI for the purpose of this workshop, just to show like some of the stuff. So yeah, a lot of it I would say is like finding the placement that you want, removing elements that don't go. Like I said, like I mentioned earlier, how I copy drums from like my original riff in here. I'll throw it in there, and then I'll remove certain things to make space for other things. So yeah, keep it simple. I mean, I think don't overthink it is like a huge thing, and it's worked for me. I don't consider myself like super crazy, but yeah, we have a lot of night bass releases, and I guess they do well in clubs. It's really fun to play. So yeah, this is how I've been making my stuff. for the most part. Yeah, and then effects, like, again, a big sampler. I'll sample effects, I'll reverse stuff, I'll down sampler, I'll transpose stuff down. I'll use certain crashes later as reverses. I like to recycle samples within my project. Just makes it easier so I don't have to dig for a bunch of stuff. Yeah, lasers, all that effect stuff. I like using delays, keep it recyclable so that you don't just sound like you're using the same samples over and again. But yeah.
Take it back like 8 tracks.
Producing tip or mindset I wish I knew earlier. Man, Alex, you got all the good questions. It's almost like you do this all the time. It's I guess, like, keeping it simple is one of the biggest things, I think. Like, don't overthink things. I did a lot of that to begin with because I'm like, man, I need to sound like these other guys. Which brings me to the next thing, is comparing yourself to others, which I think is the worst thing you could probably do. It's just like super depressing sometimes. I like the saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think if you're going to be making music, especially dance music, stuff like that, it's good to be in the mindset that you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for fun. It should be fun when you're writing music. Like, I don't follow through with a track unless while I'm working on it, I have to stop and like start jamming out in the room or something like that. Like, I think it should just always be fun. And not to get caught up in the whole, I need to get signed or I need to make it or something like that. I think that kind of degrades the whole experience. Comparison is the thief of joy, man. Catchy AF. Yeah, like, I think, again, personally, especially when I'm doing a drop or something, like, I don't like to work in a loop for too long because I think that messes up your creativity in a sense. But I do like to make sure that the loop is like, I could personally stand listening to this over and over again. Like, before I had this, I had a completely different, I don't know why it sounds like that. I had a completely different layout for things. And it didn't sound bad, I would say. But it didn't sound quite as catchy as this probably does. Because things were kind of more neat, I guess, like more on grid. Which is why I was like, okay, I should probably switch it up a little bit. And bring this in earlier and do like a little triplet thing. But yeah, I appreciate that, man. Like, I would hope it's catchy because, again, like you mentioned earlier, being in that mindset of like, you're thinking about the club when you're making this kind of music, I guess, because it is club music. And while we're not going to the club right now per se,
Take it back.
I think it's still like, it still hits, man. Like, I don't know, you get in that mindset and you're like, I would love to try to play this out in front of a crowd and see what the reaction is. Which I got to do with the first track that I went over, and I think that helped a lot in terms of like, what's it called? Like confidence in the track, I guess. I think it's kind of important to share your music, because like if you keep it to yourself, you're never gonna know. I don't know. It's probably, but I like bringing it out and like testing it in the real world to see if what I'm doing actually sounds as good as I think it does. So when you get confirmation like that, I think it helps you progress. All right, thanks again, guys. Hit me up if anything. I'll see you guys around. I want to hear some dope music. Send me some demos. I want to hear some dope music from you guys now. All right, peace.